The Redefined podcast is part of the Win-Make Give podcast network.
Ladies and gentlemen, a guy who I've had a crush on for 2.5 years. I'm happily married. I'm happily a straight man, but this guy, my goodness, makes my heart go pitter patter for all the right reasons. If you're listening to the podcast right now, I am making this man blush in such a way. I can't believe I get to partner with this guy. I can't believe I get to have him in my life. My man crush from Israel, Tamir Poleg, CEO, founder, co-founder of Real Broker. Oh my gosh, Tamir, is the feeling mutual? Do you have the same kind of crush on me? Be honest.
Well, first of all, hi, Erik. Hi, everybody. You already made me say once that you're my favorite person in the world, and now is the second time. So yes, I've had crushes on you multiple times. You're my favorite person in the world, my favorite ginger for sure. Every time I'm next to you, I feel like so energized. I feel better about myself, which is great. This is why I want to be next to you all the time. But I mean, definitely like man crushes all the time.
Sure. Oh my gosh. Tamir, you make my heart happy, man. I gotta tell you, it has been one of the joys of my life to partner with you. And who'd have thunk it was, I want to paint the picture for people, right? So here's how this all came to be. I joined Real Brokerage just over 2 years ago, but I was in like a 6-month courting process and we had to get some states open. But I sat on the sidelines watching the success and the opportunity that people saw in aligning with the right brokerage. And I was my own brokerage. I was what I thought was the top of the totem pole. I thought I had arrived. And then I saw like, oh, there's really big opportunity to find the right partnerships out there. And I saw other people capitalizing on that, not just financially, but even more so being a part of a culture and a connection and to have mentors. And my ego pushed me to do things on my own for a long time. And I recognize that I will go further and farther together when I find the right partners. And so I got introduced to this brokerage called Real. I got introduced to it through a vendor. I don't know if you know this story, Tamir, but Robbie and I, my partner, Robbie T, and I had been in conversation ad nauseum trying to figure out, like, is there the right fit that was out there for us, right? KW and Remax and EXP and all those places never felt like the right fit for us. So I prayed about it and I wrestled with it. And a vendor's like, hey, have you heard about Real Broker? And I'm like, nope, haven't heard of it. Sounds like a very generic name. And wouldn't you know, the next week you and I are on a Zoom call together. It was you and me and my sponsor, an incredible man named Chris Thompson. And so it was because the vendor knew that Chris was at Real that this is all here today. So that's the backstory of it. Enough about my backstory. I want to talk about Real.
I just remember the first time we met in New York. Like that's my first memory of you.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different story, I guess.
Well, it was the height of COVID, man. Like your team hadn't been together in person for 12 months. And you flew from Israel. You had your C-level executives. You have your entire board there. And then here comes the Kool-Aid man himself, Erik Hatch, coming in and saying, I'm going to burst through the door and I want some of your time. And you gave us a day and a half of everybody's time. Why in the world would this unbelievable CEO of an incredible brokerage give a bunch of weirdos that kind of time? It was shocking to me.
Maybe I'm not that incredible, or the brokerage wasn't that incredible, but you're a big deal and you flew in.
I mean, continue, but stop.
I mean, you know who you are, and you flew in with some folks that were an even bigger deal than you.
Right.
So
right.
we allocated the time. I remember that, I said, okay, like all of those people are going to come and visit us, which pretty much was the first time that people of your caliber came to have a serious look at Real.
I was representing a big team and I have a coaching company. And so we were there. Like, I understood that I was a whale in that regard, but I still never expected the kind of time you gave me.
But we didn't give you lunch. Don't forget that.
Yeah, gang, here's the story. I'm glad that you remember that. Tamir hosts us in the morning, and I'm thinking like I'm gonna get wined and dined, and the red carpet's gonna get rolled out. And at lunchtime, Tamir's like, hey, there's some great restaurants across the street. Be back in 90 minutes. And I'm like, this guy didn't pay for my plane ticket, and he didn't pay for my hotel. He didn't even buy me lunch. And I'm thinking
not sure
about
we could
becoming
even
partners with
afford
this
it.
guy. You couldn't
I'm not
afford it
sure
at
we
the
could
time.
afford it at that. You know, it was the middle of COVID, and obviously we were hurting. But no, I mean, I didn't fully know what to do with you guys. Like, I knew that, you know, a bunch of whales are going to come in. I have to impress them. I have to be very transparent. I have to invite some people that are, you know, central to the company. I have to bring some board members, so you know exactly who you're partnering up with. And at the end of the day, I think that what happened in that room was everybody felt like this is the right thing for them, not necessarily because, again, we wine and dine you, or we try to impress you with, you know, throwing money and gifts at you, just because we were who we are. And you know, we were very honest, and we laid out the vision, and we said, okay, we're looking for great partners. Are you great partners? And I think that you decided that you are, and I'm grateful for that.
I mean, that's such an interesting Tamir move, is like, you are the quiet lion in the room. You're the guy that is not saying a lot, which says a lot. You're the guy who is observing and watching. It's fascinating to me that I remember being like, hey, Tamir, I know that I'm bringing over a really big opportunity for real. What are you going to give me? I remember the conversation. I was like, I had a couple of people at EXP offering me 7 figures in coming over, like over $1 million. Like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. And I had another company offering me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, Tamir, what can I get? What are you going to give me? What do you think? And I, like, even looking back, I'm like, Erik, you dummy. But it also makes sense. Like, is there an opportunity here? And you said to me, and I don't know if you remember this, but I remember it like it was yesterday. You said, Erik, if our marriage begins because I offer you the nicest dowry, it doesn't mean we're going to have a great marriage. And
makes sense. I said that.
Well, the model of Real has been one in which the work that I was hoping to do is reaping me the benefits now, right? If I said I'm going to help to attract people and bring over a big team, do I get my wins in that when that happens? And this model has paid me back more than I ever expected, much faster than I ever expected. But I want to talk about what you've done with Real, what's happened in the last few years, the mountain it sits on today. I know it's not at the peak of all the mountains, but like it's done some pretty great things, and you should be really proud. So brag for a moment or two, Tamir. Let us know why this unbelievable man crush of mine has done such great things.
I'm not sure I'm able to brag, because when I sit with myself and I try to understand how I feel and try to compare it to how I felt a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago. So we started Real almost 10 years ago. I still feel like that younger person who had a dream, who had a huge dream, who wanted to change lives, and saw like a vision in front of him and wanted to pursue it. I still feel the same way. I still feel like we haven't accomplished, I wouldn't say anything, but we haven't accomplished anywhere close to what I want to accomplish, what we can accomplish as a group, as a community, as a company. It still feels like day one. Like every day feels like day one. And I'll tell you a story. When we started, there was like a huge tech hype, and there were a lot of companies raising a lot of money, and you always try to kind of understand where you sit, or how you compare to all of those founders and how all of those companies. So you're valued at $15 million because you just raised a little bit of money, and that company just raised $50 million at $200 million valuation, and this company went public with a $600 million valuation, and that CEO is a rock star. And you always aspire to become like them, because you think that once you become that person or in that position, then everything will go smoothly. Your business is running great. There are no problems, no challenges. You figured it out. Like, how do I get to the point in which I figured it out? And I think that today, when Real has hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and we're publicly traded, valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, I still feel like, you know, there's always something. We haven't made it. There are always challenges.
You don't
always
think you've
things on your
arrived yet?
shoulders. I mean, definitely not. We have not arrived yet. I think that maybe we're at station 1 out of 10, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so much to build.
So do you keep moving the goalposts, Tamir? Or has this been a part of your vision all along? Is like, because I put myself back 10 years ago. I was 43 years old. I had a head full of hair. Those were the days, by the way. But I was 33 years old 10 years ago, and I was 2 years in as being a realtor full time. I had just started my team. We sold 192 houses that year. And in Fargo, North Dakota, that was a big deal. I thought I was a big deal, right? I started to pat myself on the back and think like, and now I look and it's like, shoot, I've sold 7,000 houses now in the last 10 years. Like, have I arrived? And I never had the vision 10 years ago, Tamir, that I would be where I am right now. I couldn't see that far because I never had those models in my life. I wasn't surrounded by people who maybe were crazy, wild dreamers. So my question for you is this. 10 years ago, when you started Real, how in the world did you dream something so big? Because right now, Real is 12,000 agents. It's EBITDA profitable. It's in 48 of the 50 states. It's in 4 Canadian provinces. There's so much more coming every day. And you said you're 1 of 10 steps there. What in the hell was going on in your head 10 years ago? How did you make this manifestation into something that's so great now, and yet it's only still just begun?
You know, when you're speaking it and saying that we're in step 1 out of 10 after 10 years, it's a little bit frustrating. Like we're gonna get to
those were your words,
in 100
not
years.
mine.
Yeah, no, definitely. But when you're saying it, it becomes a little bit clearer. But I think that what happens along the way is that things are becoming more and more of a reality. So pieces of the puzzle become more crystallized. And this is why I'm saying that we're in station 1 or step 1 out of 10, because I think when I'm saying that, I'm thinking about all of the things that we can still build, all of the things that we can do that will bring immense value to our agents and to our agents' clients, and all of the things that we can do to improve the consumer journey as well, and all of the things that nobody has thought about, but now they're possible with everything that we built on the tech side and this amazing team that we have in the company. This is why I'm saying that it's still the beginning. So maybe in this business, it just takes a long time and a lot of efforts to get the ball rolling, but then when it's rolling, maybe things happen faster. And I think that things will happen faster. So the pace of innovation, maybe the pace of growth, maybe the awareness about Real in the marketplace. Like I think that a year ago or 2 years ago, probably 20-30% of the agents knew who Real is, and now maybe 60-70% of the agents in the country know, in the US and Canada. So maybe there's just an acceleration in the velocity of things happening. But I don't know. I mean, there was a clear North Star for us, and it never changed within those 10 years, which is always find ways to make agents' lives better. And this is what's guiding us. This is how we make decisions. This is what's driving the innovation and all of the ideas that we're thinking about. And I think that when you're thinking about a vision, then that hasn't changed.
So the vision was always make agents' lives better, but the actual execution of that has manifested and changed itself over time. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I think that we had also, like, we understood that Real is going to become one of the largest brokerages in the world.
And let me pause for a moment. Real has less than a 1% market share right now in the United States.
Right.
For agent count.
But it's a very fragmented industry as well, which is a whole different story.
Yeah, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of brokerages.
Yeah, and I also think that people maybe are not noticing it, but the industry is undergoing a massive change, structural change. And I think that in 5 years, probably 50% of the agents in America will be working for new model brokerages or non-brick and mortar. I was sitting with somebody from KW yesterday. And someone who's senior, we were talking as friends, like not, my brokerage is better than yours, or
Sure.
yours is better than mine. But at some point, I asked him, what would it take? What kind of infrastructure do you need to put in place in order to bring in 1,000 new agents? And that was KW in Israel. And he said, for us to bring in 1,000 agents, I'll probably need 40 to 50 new locations, so offices. I'll need 2 to 2.5 people per location, so I'll need to hire 100 people. It'll take me anywhere between 12 to 24 a month to actually find those locations, negotiate the leases, make them ready, hire all those people. And then he asked me, what would it take real to add 1,000 people? And I said, 0. I wouldn't even need a new server, like 0. And I think that at that point, you could see that he understood that something is flawed with the traditional brokerage model. And I said, just last quarter, we added 1,500 agents. We didn't need to hire new people for that. We didn't need to do anything. We have the infrastructure in place. So I think that the industry is just undergoing massive change, which is, it's slow and it's, below the surface, but I think it goes hand in hand with our initial vision of becoming, one of the largest brokerages in the world. And yes, we have less than 1% market share, but I think that in this industry, having 1% market share is kind of an achievement by itself. And I think that there's no reason why Real shouldn't have a 5 to 10% market share in a few years.
I want to go back to Tamir in 2013 when Real started. Was it 2013 or 2014?
We started in 2014, but the idea was in my head since probably the end of 2013.
How did you learn to dream so big? Because I think so many people only see what's right in front of them. I think a lot of agents don't even see the opportunity of what it means to now be an owner of a company, and they're just living for the transaction of today because that's what their world is forcing them to do.
I don't know. You have to be a little bit maybe insane or stupid to think that you can do something like that. But no, I think
that's the show title: Tamir Poleg, Insane and Stupid,
and somewhat stupid. I think it has to do with things that you went through in your life, how you grew up, what kind of experiences you experienced. I think that my military service gave me a lot in terms of understanding that you can overcome any challenge, and maybe the fact that anything is possible. I started a couple of businesses in my past. I also lost a lot of money, so it has to do with that as well. I think that losing a lot of money and sometimes losing everything you have gives you a lot of confidence, because you know that you can get back up on your feet and build something new.
Do you think people are afraid of rock bottom?
Yeah.
Right. And so because they're afraid, they don't ever take big swings?
I think that most of the decisions that we take in our lives, both everyday decisions and bigger decisions, are generated by fear versus by opportunity. I think that I would say more than 90% of the people are basing their decisions on fear versus other things. But once you eliminate, so at some point I eliminated the word fear from my life. It was probably over 10 years ago. And when fear doesn't exist, it gives you a little bit more clarity on the opportunities that are out there. I mean, obviously, you should be aware of the risks, and you should be aware of what happens if this doesn't work or if it doesn't go as planned. But if fear doesn't drive you, I think that you can dream bigger and accomplish more.
You talked about how you failed and lost a bunch of money prior to 2014 in starting some businesses and that sort. I don't know all those stories. I'd love to understand them. I want everybody to see what a mess you are, Tamir, right?
I mean, I was definitely a mess. I think that between 2013 and 2019, I was a complete mess. And it's funny because those are, the years where we started Real, we started scaling Real, we built everything. But internally in my personal life, many aspects of it were a mess. So prior to founding Real, I had my own real estate company in Texas. At some point, things started to go south because of things that have to do with the business, how it was structured, my previous partner. And then I just lost a lot of money. I thought that I'm going to retire at 2013, and that dream kind of burst one day. So I had to reinvent myself, to be honest.
But before you reinvented yourself, like, you lose all that money. I've lost a bunch of money in the past, and some days, today and yesterday, I'm still losing a bunch of money on things. What stories were you telling yourself when that happened? Because my experience with losing money is it becomes paralyzing.
I think that there are phases. When you lose money or when you lose something in general, there are phases. At the beginning, you tell yourself stories, then you realize what situation you're in. Then, the end of it is kind of coming to terms with everything that happened to you. But I think that for me, at the beginning was fighting really hard to save the business and save things that were salvageable. Then it was a lot of anger towards people that were involved, partners that were involved in that. I think that at the end of it, I said, and this is something that's still guiding me, everything that happens to me in life is in my control and my responsibility. So I believe in God. I believe that God only faces us with challenges that we're able to overcome. And I think that everything that happens to us is within our control. So I think that all of those things that happen, all of those negative things that happen to me, I could have impacted them in a way that maybe I could have steered it away from the outcome that eventually happened. But I don't blame anybody. I just, I take responsibility and I move on. That's it.
Boy, that is rare to have somebody not play the blame game. But I'd imagine early on you were blaming a lot of people, right? You talked about a bad partnership or other things. I put myself in those situations, and I've lived a lot of my life in my darkest days have been riddled in blame towards other people. How I always got out of that was I took ownership of the things instead of just letting those things take ownership of me. And I heard you just say that. So when you were dealing, Tamir, with people that had harmed you, frustrated you, wronged you, they went left when you went right, whatever it may be, how did you deal with those kind of emotions and those kind of debilitating mindsets?
I think that as a person, I'm extremely forgiving, and I always look for, like, what have I done wrong? What have I done to trigger that kind of behavior from their part? Or what could I have done in that situation better to support that person who's my partner? Partnerships should be somewhat balanced, and they're rarely balanced, or they are rarely balanced over time. Even marriage, marriage, sometimes it's balanced, but very often it's imbalanced, because sometimes you need to rely on your significant other. Sometimes they have to rely on you. I think that I've done I guess a good job at saying, you need to give more, you need to go the extra mile, you need to be like the stone or the rock that your partner relies on, because immersing yourself in negativity and in blaming others, when you blame others, essentially what you're telling yourself is, I have no control and I cannot get myself out of this situation. That's the main problem. Like, if it's in that person's hands, then it means that they're controlling you, they're impacting, they're leading, you can do nothing about it. And you don't want to be in that situation. You want to be able to take yourself, fix whatever can be fixed, or just, take the loss and move on. And the only way to do that is by taking responsibility and taking initiative as well. I think that, by the way, talking about initiative, I think that for a while there, when the business was going south, I was telling myself stories of, okay, it's going to change, I'm going to count on him, he's going to turn things around, I'm going to stay somewhat passive. And that was maybe my biggest mistake of being passive.
So you allowed and had somebody try to work through it, even though you knew that you were capable, talented, and your fingerprint should be all over it. So you stayed on the sideline, and that was the mistake. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, but you cannot isolate your business life from your personal life. At that same time, my marriage wasn't doing very well. So I think it was a combination of things that maybe were just too much on myself. So I needed to decide which battles I'm going to fight. And I think that on the business front, I just didn't have the energy. I didn't have the power. I didn't have the initiative. I didn't have the clarity. I didn't have maybe the time to invest in it. And I just relied on the other person.
So the exhaustion of things at home left you with not enough to give to a complicated situation at work. Yes. On top of inexperience, on top of
it definitely drained me. Yes.
I think so many people fail to understand that if you're dealing with chaos at home, if you don't have a household that gives you energy, in fact, it takes energy. Maybe you're struggling with your kids or your marriage or depression or anything that is imbalanced in your world. You talked about how partnerships are balanced, but I think that when there's imbalance in our lives, it immediately causes imbalances everywhere. Not just like you can't just have problems with your marriage and not have that show up at the workplace.
Right. And let me tell you a story, which I never told anyone.
Ooh, inside scoop. I like
no,
this.
It's not that of a big story, but I think that when everything was happening, both on the business side, on my personal side and personal life, my ex-wife was my high school sweetheart. So we've known each other since I was 16. In 2013, we were probably, I don't know, almost 20 years into our relationship. I remember myself standing in the shower. So, we're men, so we think when we're taking a shower, that's pretty much the only time of day that we're able to think. So I was standing in the shower, and I had like a moment of clarity about my life. I all of a sudden realized that everything that I built on the business side is falling apart. And I said, okay, this is lost. Like, this is gone. I still have my family. I have my wife. I have my kids. And at that point, I just prayed to God and said, please let me keep my family. Like, let me just keep that one thing, because I see that everything is falling apart. And as I was praying, I think I already knew that this was also done. Like, God is not going to let me keep that relationship. And that was a difficult moment, to be honest. But I think that at that point, you don't see what's going to happen in 10 years. And I think that now I understand that everything that happened just led to a much better future for myself. But at that point in time, 10 years ago, it felt like everything is falling apart. And I just prayed to God that, just leave me that one solid thing, my family, my wife, my 3 kids, my 3 amazing boys. Just don't touch that, because it really felt like somebody from the outside is trying to take away things from me.
How long after that moment in the shower in 2013 until your marriage crumbled?
A couple of months.
Wow. So that was really quick.
Yeah, it was quick. Yeah, everything happened very quickly. But then a few months later, I started Real. I met my
So you're at the low point. Your last business fell apart a little bit, right?
yeah.
Your marriage just fell apart. Financially, I can't imagine you're in the black, right? You're in the red for so many things.
Oh yeah, definitely.
At your
Yeah.
lowest point, you're looking up and you're like, I'm going to grow this big friggin' company that impacts the lives of agents. And I'm going to do something really huge and awesome with my life.
Uh, yeah, it sounds impossible, but this is exactly what happened. But on one hand, I'm an entrepreneur. I had this idea that I wanted to pursue and that vision. At the same time, I had to do something with my career. So I had to create something. I mean, I'm not the type of person that can go and work at a company and be it's just not me. I knew that I would be miserable. So the only chance was try and recreate my own future. And I think that's exactly what happened. But it was super difficult under the conditions.
But you talked earlier about 2013 to 2019, that those
Yeah.
were really difficult years. 2013, your previous business collapses, your marriage collapses. You're now in this whole new world. You have a vision to build a really big company, and it doesn't launch right away. I mean, it doesn't become this profitable beast that all of a sudden you're kicking back and be like, oh, I'm finally back to above water. Like you're underwater for 6 years, bro. That's so
Yeah.
big. What happened in that 6-year period? Because I'd imagine it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies.
No, a lot of highs and lows. In 2014, I met Marina, who's Marina is my partner. She's my wife, my amazing wife. And in 2014, we also started Real. And Real has gone through a lot of ups and downs, good times, bad times. We raised money. We exhausted all of that money. We raised money again. I'll not go through.
I don't want people to miss the story, because I heard you tell this story a few months ago in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you burned through sounds irresponsible. You were trying to grow this company. You spent millions of dollars of other people's money.
Yeah.
How close were you to just needing to fold it all in?
So this is why I was referencing 2019, because I think that 2019 was 2020 was a changing point, but 2019 was kind of the lowest point in the company's life. So up to 2019, we raised, I think it was like $13 million. And as you said, startups, use other people's money in order to build something and grow. So in 2019, we were left with, I think, about $50,000 in the bank. That's it. In 2019, I pretty much laid off everyone at the company, which was one of the most difficult things I ever did in life. So we were left just a few people supporting a couple of hundreds of agents. And at that point in 2019, personally, I was in the middle of the divorce fight, which took a few years because we were fighting over money that we didn't really have.
Divorce fight.
Yes. And then Real, which was my kind of hope in life, professionally, was left with $50,000 in the bank. The business was stagnant. Nobody wanted to invest any more money. Last valuation that we had was, I don't know, around $20 million. And then I needed to bring money in order to keep the lights on. And at that point, I went to one of my board members, who's a dear friend of mine right now, and
Guy, right?
Guy, who supported us from day one. And I said, Guy, this is the situation. You know exactly what's going on. We haven't been growing for quite a while. I'm not sure I have any new ideas. I do know that I can make it work. Like,
let's pause for just a moment. Hey, this hasn't worked for the last 5 or 6 years. and I don't have anything else to offer you, but can you please give me more millions? Right?
So here's the thing. It has worked, but then it stopped working.
Okay.
And then it just stopped working for a while, and everybody got like very bearish on the future of the company. But I knew that, or I thought I can make it work. So I went to Guy and I said, we need money. I came to you a couple of times before and asked for money, and you were so graceful and gave us that money and helped us raise money from others. And I know that it's a very difficult ask because right now we have nothing to show. What do you suggest we do? And Guy said, and it was the first time that he ever said that to me, even though we went through a couple of challenges or crisis situations through the life of Real. It was the first time that Guy told me, you know, Tamir, I think that maybe you should think deep with yourself and ask yourself, is this what you want to continue to do? Or maybe now is the time to give up. And coming from Guy, who was the biggest supporter, the biggest believer in the company, the person I trusted more than anyone in business, when he told me, and that's, I mean, Guy has a way of saying things. So he will never tell you, hey, you should quit. He would tell you, maybe you should take a deep look and think whether this is what you want to do with your life, or maybe you should give up. So that was his way of telling me, I think that you probably got to the end point. And at that point I said, I think that I called him the next day and said, Guy, I can make it work. And then he said, okay, let's think of a plan. And the plan was, because we couldn't raise any external money, was coming to our existing shareholders, existing investors, and tell them, hey, the company was valued at $20 million. Like, your holdings were worth $20 million in total. We're going to raise $600,000 at a $2 million valuation. Like 90% reduction. But if you agree to do that, it will be in two tranches. You give me $300,000 now, $300,000 in 6 months if I accomplish a few milestones that have to do with agent count and revenue, and I will figure it out. And then we came to the existing shareholders. I'm laughing now, but this is probably the most embarrassing conversation to have, telling people, hey, we just wiped 90% of the company's valuation. We came to them and said, do you still believe in the company or not? Are you willing to give us a last chance? And Guy was doing a lot of work in the background, just convincing people, because I think that at that point, many of them just stopped believing in me as the CEO, as the leader, that I can actually turn things around. And finally, they did agree to give us those $300,000. About a month later, I came to the board and said, I have an idea. It's a crazy idea, but I want to take the company public. And they thought I was crazy. Like we were so tiny, and we were hurting.
How many agents did you have at this point?
I think we had, I don't know, 600, 700 agents, something like that. But revenue was super low. Those were very low production agents.
600 agents. If they're the average agent, that's like 2 or 3 Keller Williams market centers. That's like if you go to Philadelphia, you can find 3 KW market centers, and you're going to have 600 agents at those 3. And you had the stupid idea, which is such a gift, to say, let's take these 3 market centers worth of average agents and let's go public.
But I told them, we're building this company in partnership with our agents. And I want to take a portion of the company and give it to our agents so they can own a piece of that thing that we're building together. And it's much more powerful if that portion of the company was publicly traded, so there was a value attached to their stocks. This is how I explained it to my investors. And at the end of the conversation, I said, you know, we have nothing to lose. Like, the company is basically almost dead. Like,
Yep.
let's give it a shot. Like, why not? And it was so crazy that they actually supported me. So,
Were they, be honest with me, looking back, were they betting on the idea or were they betting on you?
I think that the idea sounded crazy to them. Like, the chances of that succeeding were 0.00 something percent. I think that this is how they analyzed it. But I think I just managed to sell it.
So
I think that
I asked that question because there's some really talented people with really bad ideas. And I'm sure you and I have had a plethora of those in the past. But you found the one thing, and it was wild. It was out there. It was like, that's fascinating to me, Tamir.
And so we decided to go public. Obviously, doing an IPO costs about anywhere between $500,000 to $800,000. So we didn't have that money. And they told me, you know, if you want to do it, just find the money and do it. And I said, okay, I don't know how to find the money. And I said, okay, instead of doing an IPO, we will merge with a publicly traded shell, like a SPAC in Canada, because Canada has a very friendly exchange for small companies. And then I found that SPAC, and I went to the owners of the SPAC and said, we want to merge with you, but I don't really have the money to pay the attorneys and pay the auditors. So why don't you guys invest the money in us before that merger, which was a very unusual ask. Mm-hmm. But they went for it. It was like, you know, the hand of God was in that move. And then we said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to raise $1.2 million concurrently with going public. And I started talking to investors and said, hey, we're going to become publicly traded, and this is the vision. And I managed to get commitments from people to invest $1.2 million. And then COVID hit. and all of those people told me, like, are you crazy? The world is falling apart. We're not going to invest a single dollar. Mm-hmm. So here I am at the beginning of COVID. The plan
do you have investors dropping out at this point, Tamir? Do you have people who are like, yeah, I'm not giving you any more money, I'm done?
I mean, they only gave the $600,000 and that's it. I knew that they were done. I needed to find fresh money. This is why I got commitments from other people to invest the 1.2 if we managed to go public.
What was the valuation at the 1.2?
It was $18 million, something in that range.
Okay. But the 600,000 on 2 million, man, that's 30%.
They made a killing.
I'll
tell you why they made a killing. Because at the end of 2020, I think we were valued at, I don't know, $300-400 million. So they invested at the end of 2019 at a $2 million valuation.
Yep.
And at 1 year later or 15 months later, it was $400-500 million.
So I'm not the only person with a man crush on you, is what you're telling me.
I mean, yeah, they're happy. They're definitely happy. But, you know, going back to the story, COVID hit, everybody bailed out. I needed to find fresh money. So I remember myself in the winter of 2020, middle of COVID, knocking on doors in Toronto and New York, literally going into downtown Toronto, knocking on people's doors, door to door, asking people to invest $50,000 into the company. And I gathered like 100,000 from there, 50,000 from there. And at the end, we had that amount and we went public, and then the rest is history.
When you knocked on those doors, how many doors did you have to knock on in order to get somebody to say, yeah, I'll give you money?
Oh, plenty. Nobody, I mean, think about COVID. Everybody pulled out of the stock market. Everybody thought that the world is falling apart. There was no visibility. Nobody knew what tomorrow is going to look like. And nobody wanted to invest. Like, it was pretty much impossible to raise any money. back then. So I had to talk to, I don't know, over 100 people, I think.
You are tenacious. I think you described yourself as a little bit crazy and stupid, in the most beautiful of ways, to be able to push through. When Guy asked you that question, is now the time to give up? How did you make the decision to not give up?
I think it was a combination of two things, and maybe it goes back to your comment about being tenacious and just, pushing forward. It's a combination of me truly believing in the business and in my ability to make it happen. But there was also a part of me that there was no alternative for me. Like, think about my life back then. I was in a nasty divorce fight. I had 3 young children that I needed to support. I was trying to build that new relationship with Marina. I just couldn't let it fail because I had no plan B. That was my only plan. And by the way, another, I don't know if it's a secret or not, but when I was discussing with my ex-wife or her lawyers, all of the kind of arrangements, Real was founded after my ex-wife and I separated. So legally, she's not entitled to anything that is related to Real, but at the same time, people can claim that Real was built on top of intellectual property that you acquired throughout your marriage. Like, throughout my discussions with her, there was one thing that I always said: you're not touching Real. Like, Real is out of the conversation. And when we actually got to an agreement, which happened also in 2019, the agreement between my ex-wife and I was, you take everything, all of the few assets that we had left. I'm taking a debt to the Israeli tax authority on myself, which was substantial for me back then. And I'm left with Real. And that was the same point in time where Real was valued at $2 million. Like the lowest point ever. But I believe so much in that company, and I also didn't have any alternative, that I just had to make it happen. So sometimes when you have your back to the wall, you make things happen.
You lost the house, the cars, the money. You took on the tax debt from the Israeli government, and you were left with a company that now is worth what's the valuation of Real today?
I think it's around $300 million.
Yeah. You took something and you've 150x'd it in the last 3 years. And then you're also saying that you're only one of 10 steps. I know the other steps are going to come faster than it did, because the first step to get to where we are today has taken 10 years. The next one will probably be quicker, will probably be faster, right? So what's next, Tamir? What's next for Real? What's next for someone like me who gets to partner with you? Let me know, because I'm just fangirling here. Let me know what's next, because you're somebody worth following.
I think that you know some of the things, but I mean, I'm a big believer in completely overhauling the consumer experience and just providing an amazing home buying experience for consumers, while leaving the agents in the center. So that's a big piece of the technology that we're building that I think will give a huge competitive advantage to our agents over everybody else in the industry. And that's probably a process of 1 to 2 years to materialize. I also think that a lot of the technology that we build that has to do with Leo, our personal AI assistant, is progressing so rapidly that Leo very soon will be your best friend and your kind of business power multiplier, I would say. Like, just think about yourself telling Leo on the app, hey, Leo, can you please approve Mr. and Mrs. Jones for a mortgage? And can you please draft a contract? Like, all of those things that typically take time. And Leo will be able to do that for you in seconds. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about some things that we will be announcing at Rise that have to do with how agents retire, or how we as a company look at the assets that agents build here, which has to do with equity, revenue share, pending transaction, past transactions. How can we take those assets and leverage them to give you access to capital, for example? So we have some things in the pipeline that nobody has tried before, no other brokerage. It's just mind-blowing how we can leverage the technology and the information that we have and the assets that agents are building on top of our platform to just deliver more and more services. So I'm excited about all that, and I think that Real in a year from now will look very different in terms of the value that it's bringing.
The man who's crazy and stupid enough to get us there. I absolutely love it, Tamir, and I'm honored and proud to call you a partner and a friend. I can't wait to see what we can continue to grow together. Gang, if you have enjoyed this time with Tamir, if you're out there in the real estate world, I got to tell you, there's nobody like him. So lean in and see if you can glean from this guy some of the amazing things that he's doing and the vision and the leadership that he provides. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, I want you to go ahead and smash that subscribe button, not just delicately push it. I want you to smash the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content to show you how the food is made by seeing the crazy mess that these entrepreneurs have gone through so we can provide greatness for you. So my name is Erik Hatch. This is the Redefine Podcast, and we will catch you guys next time on the Flippity Flip.